Hello, today is Tuesday, April the 27th, 2021. My name is Josiah Patterson. I'm interviewing Amberly Duke for the South Texas Archives at Texas A&M University of Kingsville. This is part of the Voces of a Pandemic Oral History Project in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know Ms. Amberly Duke that this recorded interview will be placed in the South Texas Archives at Texas A&M University, Kingsville, and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there's anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, especially given that your recording may appear online, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each one. There are 4 questions we need to make sure you agree to before we go on. South Texas Archives at Texas A&M University, Kingsville wishes to archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation at the South Texas Archives at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. We will retain copyright of the interview and any other materials you donate to the South Texas Archives at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. 1, do you give us consent to archive your interview and your materials at the Jernigan Library at Texas A&M University of Kingsville?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant South Texas Archives at the Jernigan Library at Texas A&M University of Kingsville copyright over the interview and any material you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow South Texas Archives at the Jernigan Library at Texas A&M University of Kingsville to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant South Texas Archives at the Jernigan Library at Texas A&M University of Kingsville consent to share your interview and your materials with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voces of a Pandemic Oral History Project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
We have many questions in a pre-interview form that we have already filled out. We use that information for the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. The final storing of the pre-interview form will be at the South Texas Archives at the Jernigan Library at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. We will have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members so that will not be part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at the Jernigan Library. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at the South Texas Archives at the Jernigan Library at Texas A&M University, Kingsville?
Yes, I agree.
On occasion, Voces receives requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So to start off for question number 1, tell me a little bit about your experience with COVID-19.
Okay. My experience was a horrible experience. The symptom-wise, it lasted for about 2 weeks. And then being out of work was, horrible. My whole family had a quarantine. So my kids were at home exposed to it. And my husband was also out of work for 2 to 3 weeks. So overall, it was a horrible experience.
Okay. How did you first learn about the COVID-19?
Like whenever I had it,
I guess you can go
or
from prior to, I guess, the release of like COVID-19 pandemic actually started.
okay. So the first time I heard about it was we took my son to Monster Jam in San Antonio. Um, and then I think like that week later is when it like became real like public and media, you know, everyone had it over media, social
Mhm.
media. So that's whenever I first learned about
Oh, okay. Um, so what was your initial reaction to the information about COVID-19?
it. My first initial was that people were overreacting, that it wasn't serious. It was just like the flu, and that was my first initial reaction.
That's understanding. I think a lot of people kind of still have that
Yeah.
reaction. Um, at what point and how did you realize this was um, serious, or do you even think it's serious till this day?
So I started to think it was serious whenever I got it, and it wasn't me, like you know, my health. Thought more about my kids. I thought about if
Mm-hmm.
they got it, and at the time that I got it, a lot of people were getting it. You know, a lot. That's when a lot of people were passing away in Texas. So that's whenever I was like, oh crap, this is serious. Definitely not
That's
like the flu. It's a whole different, you know, the symptom wise. I've never felt that sick in my life.
do you want to go into depth about like how the symptoms, I guess, made you feel?
Yeah, so my first well whenever so I went to work July 4th. That night I it was like 12 o'clock and I was like, I think I'm sick. Like I wasn't feeling good, like kind of had body chills. I felt hot, but it was cold, you know. Um, and then my husband was like, no, you're overreacting. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, maybe I'm overreacting. Um, but then I woke up at 2 o'clock. My fever was 104.5.
Oh,
So I had a fever, high fever. It never went down 103 for a whole week. And then I had body chills, which I felt like was the worst part of it was the body chills because you couldn't control it. And I didn't lose my taste, smell, my taste or my smell. I didn't lose that. Um, but yeah, so you know, the only thing that helped me was just laying outside. You know, I would lay on my porch whenever I had the chance because that was the only thing that could help. You know, that was helping me.
okay. Did anybody else in the household receive the COVID?
No, everybody else was negative.
So, okay. How did COVID-19, I guess, impact you and your family?
Um, I think we started to take it more serious. Um, at first, you know, as a mom, I wasn't taking it serious until you know I got it. So now when we go out, we try to make sure it's not busy or especially if we have the kids with us, we try to make sure that we're not going into a place that's you know packed, um, and you know of course using our mask because before I was not using my mask.
Hmm. So what about any other family members uh, outside of your immediate like household?
I don't think anybody else got it. No.
Okay. Do you think they take it very seriously or no?
Um, Not so much. I feel like everybody doesn't take it as serious as unless, you know, once they get it and then people are like, oh, you know, you gotta take this serious.
Hmm. Um, how would you say like how was going out into the world during COVID-19 different from pre-COVID?
Well, main thing is the mask. You know, nobody wore masks before. Um, I think people are more cautious, exactly on where they're going and how many people are in that surrounding area. So I think just, everyone just more cautious than what they were before. Before nobody cared. Nobody were thinking, hey, we're gonna get this virus. So now with COVID, everyone's like, oh well, today might be the day that I go to HB and get, COVID. So
Okay, well, speaking of like surrounding areas, how does COVID like impact your family gatherings or just important events that y'all would like to go to?
so family gathering, we don't really have a big family. So our when we have family gatherings, it's probably only like 15 people. So I don't think that has affected anything. I don't think COVID has really affected anything there. Um, but it has affected, like I've been wanting to put my son in t-ball, but I've decided not to. And then I want to put my daughter in gymnastics, and I'm kind of holding off on that because of COVID. So it does, it did, kind of put me at a restriction on what I'm going to do with my kids.
So does it kind of alter who you interact with on a regular basis from now and before COVID?
Not really. I just, when I do interact, I'm not so close. And then I, of course, wear my mask. So I still pretty much interact with everybody. I work at a car dealership. So I see, hundreds of different people every day. So I think, just you have to be cautious.
Okay. And this is kind of a question that I get, or this is a question that I hear very often. So after receiving COVID, did it like kind of like change the way, I guess, like, were you more free to being out because you already like caught the COVID, or did it kind of make you more cautious?
It definitely made me more cautious. Just because I don't ever want to get that. Like I said, that feeling is a whole different type of feeling. Like I've never felt like that before. So like whenever I first was feeling sick and I told my husband, I think I'm getting sick, I've never felt that. So I definitely feel like I'm more cautious. You know, before I caught COVID, so COVID got big around when like March to like June. I never wore a mask. And even my manager was like, you need to put your mask on, and I would put it on, and then when he would walk away, I would take it off. So I feel like now I always have my mask on. I'm more cautious because I don't want to get it, and I also don't want to expose my kids to that again.
So you already spoke about how you are about wearing a mask before and now. So do you think the more as time goes on, you will loosen up about wearing a mask, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think now I'm kind of I still wear my mask, but whenever I first got back from COVID, whenever I was in the back of where we sit to make phone calls, I would always have my mask on. But now recently I've decided I've been not keeping it on. So if I go to the back, I'll take it off, and if I go up to the showroom where the customers are, then I'll put it back on.
So what challenges did your children face as they moved from online from an online model of education?
So my son's already back at school, but through the time where they were just online and they didn't have the option to go back into face to face, they do say he's behind, but they said all kids are really behind because of online. They say parents have to work, so parents are not really showing the kids the stuff that the teachers would. And a lot of parents nowadays don't have education, so it's hard to teach the kids that what you don't know. So my son is behind because of the online, but he is back to face to face. So
So do you feel like the school settings, they provided the proper resources or tools for your child to do well in school?
I don't. The school did not, but his teacher did.
Oh,
So whatever the school was lacking, the teacher was there. The teacher would even come to our house and help him out.
mhm. How, if at all, have schools helped your community during COVID-19? Have they distributed food? Have they provided students tech accommodations?
Yeah, so I know the schools were passing out like iPads or laptops. And they were doing the food. So a certain hour, like around lunchtime, you could go get a free lunch. And yeah, so that's pretty much what they're doing.
Has your own education been disrupted as a result of COVID-19?
No.
No. What kind of concerns or questions about healthcare have emerged as a result of COVID?
Mm,
In
not
another
really
way, I
much.
can say, how is it changing the way you're doing, like getting healthcare? That can add on to the question.
I don't think it's really changed anything. It's just now like are you saying like how if I have to take my kid to the doctor, how did that change?
Yeah, for instance,
Oh,
that could be a good example.
so one thing is like if say I'm off and I have to take my kids to the doctor, um, I can only take one in at a time. So that's kind of a that's hard because then it's like where do I leave my other kid whenever my other kid has a doctor's appointment. So I mean they're more strict on how many people are in the room, but it's also just it's hard sometimes.
So how about getting any of the vaccines? Any problems registering? Are you getting the first one? Have
Uh,
you already got it or from there?
so I decided to hold off for a while. Um, I don't really have a reason why. I don't want to. I personally don't want to do it. I want to wait for a couple months.
How does your spouse feel?
Um, I don't think he wants to get it, but I'm eventually gonna get it. But I personally want to hold off. And then yeah.
So do you feel like if you commit to, I know getting the COVID vaccine right now is kind of a big idea for everybody. So do you feel like getting the vaccine yourself, do you feel y'all should do it as a joint decision or?
No, I feel like if he decides not to, then that's him. Um, I eventually will do it because I do work where I see customers every day, and I expose myself every day going to work as he does too. But he doesn't deal with customers. He deals with the same crew members. Every day. Sometimes it does change. But me, on the other hand, I deal with many new faces, and sometimes they want to shake my hand, and it's rude not to shake hands. Um, so I'll eventually get it. If he doesn't want to, then that's him.
So do you follow up on, I guess, politics any remotely close to, well?
No.
Um, so how has COVID impacted your work area?
So that we are more cautious. Whenever I got it back in July, I think we were on skeleton crews. So my crew was 10 people, and then, different crews were 10 people. But my crew alone, we were out 8 people. So there's only 2 people on my crew. Um, so, our workspaces have been more spaced out, and now we have to sanitize every hour, deep sanitize every hour. So, that's different.
Uh, so did you lose a lot of work? Did you receive any pay cut or anything like that?
I didn't receive a pay cut. I was out in total. I was out for 6 weeks. Just because I was out because I was sick, and then so that was a 2 week quarantine. But then I tested positive again, so I had to be out another 2 weeks, and then my kids' daycare asked me to be out for 2 more weeks. So I was out for a total of 6 weeks. I applied for unemployment. They denied me for whatever reason. They said I was still employed, which I was, but I wasn't working. And yeah, so I got paid for maybe a week I got paid a week out of that whole 6 weeks. So I guess that's a pay cut.
So basically, basically. So financially, how did that impact your family household?
So we kind of struggled for a little bit. My husband gets partial unemployment, so whenever he is out of work, he can claim. So if he doesn't make 40, he can claim, whatever hours. I don't know how that works, but he does get partial unemployment. Um, but without my income as well, we kind of just struggled for a little bit. And then around that time, I think we still had like our income tax money saved up, so it kind of, it kept us afloat. And then as soon as I was able to go back to work, and then he was able to go back to work, we just try to put in as many hours as we could.
Okay, that's good. So has the nature of finding work or just, I guess, being at work changed for you?
Um, can you repeat the question?
Has the nature of work, being at work, changed for you?
No. I think when COVID was, really bad, and there's hundreds of cases a day. I feel like, we were all just more cautious. Now I feel like we're kind of just more eased out. It's not as big, so nothing. I wouldn't say nothing has really changed.
Okay. Financially, do y'all prioritize, I guess, a little bit differently, like just in case if y'all have to go through another period of like quarantining?
No. Well, with the stimulus checks, we haven't really spent any of them. So I think that's just our backup plan. And then also, at my job, because there are so many people out at one time, they did like put in. We have sick pay, and then we have COVID pay. So that's 32 hours for just us, and then we have COVID family pay. So if one of our family gets sick and we all have to quarantine, I could use that. So that's something that my job has added to our pay, our pay plan.
So would you say that your job, they do a pretty good job of making sure that y'all are at least partially covered somehow?
Yes. And at first I don't think they were, because they didn't expect for so many people to be out. There was literally, my crew, 8 people were out, and that was from back to back to back. So like one person left Thursday, one person left Friday, and then I left Saturday. So it was like back to back to back. So before they weren't, because I only got paid a week. But now I guess they realize, hey, this is pretty serious. So they did step up there, just to help us if we happen to be out again.
So have your at work, have your duty I guess changed? Did they change your shift? Did anything alter, I guess, at your work?
Not anymore. Like I said, when COVID was bad, so around May, June, we were doing 3 days on, 3 days off with skeleton crew. But that went away once, I think went away back in August, when COVID started to die down a little bit in Corpus. And then the only thing that has been added on to my work is I have to sanitize if the receptionist isn't there. So once the receptionist leaves, I have to then sanitize every hour.
Okay. So have the current social movements in conjunction with COVID-19 impacted your daily life, as in your perspectives on going out?
It did. Just I was more cautious on where I was going before. If I wanted to go out to eat, we would go out to eat. I mean, we still do. We try not to take the kids as much, just because we try not to expose them, even though we're exposed, we come home and we expose them. So I don't know, it's kind of like a yes and a no.
Because I know it's kind of hard, deciding whether or not it's a necessity to go do something, or if it's just hey, we should maybe just go out and have fun. So is
Yeah.
it kind of hard to, I guess, depict yeah, let's just do it, I guess, let's just take
Yeah.
our family time?
Yeah, so I know one thing, my son loves Jumping World, which is like Jumping World, a trampoline place. And we used to go there a lot. But now we go maybe once every 3 months. Just because I'm pretty sure they can't sanitize properly. There's hundreds of kids in there daily, and it's just a swimming pool of germs. So we try not to go as much, but then it's hard to have the kids just locked up, and going to the park, it's kind of the same thing. So it's just we go we go once every 3 months. So that's something that changed, because we would go every weekend we would go to Jumping World. So
How do you think it's affecting your children, the whole COVID, I guess, experience?
So yes, only because my son now asks his questions to me are so he watches somebody on YouTube, and they do blogs or vlogs or whatever they're called on YouTube, and that person's mom died because of COVID. So he asked me, he said, one of his questions were Mom, why did she die because of COVID? So I think it opened up questions on why people die, which, it's kind of he's sick. So it's kind of hard to ask, it's hard to answer. And my daughter's 3, and she's really smart. So she knows my mom passed away. And one time she asked me, she's like, Mom, did your mom die because of COVID? And I'm like, no. So, it opened up, I guess, them being curious about death, which I feel at a young age, they shouldn't even know about it. But because everything is so, media based, and he watches YouTube, he got into it. So that's something that changed. I guess their innocence,
Yeah, most definitely. So do you have anything that you want to touch on extra?
No.
Do you have any questions for me?
No.
Okay. Thank you for participating in the Voces project with me.